Those of you who read the comments on my videos may remember how, when people offered to draw me an OC pony, I just sort of told them some colors I liked, some ponies with designs I liked, and a couple of general details. This is why. My design sense is about on the level of Twilight Sparkle, and in fact, the terrible dresses that the characters wear in this episode are strikingly similar to my everyday fashion sense. I love Rarity so much. She hasn't gotten to do anything in Season 3, which is pretty sad, but some of her focus episodes are among my favorites in the show, such as this episode and Sweet and Elite. I relate a lot to Rarity's passion for her craft, and in this episode I particularly enjoyed watching her take on a huge number of projects at once, since Interestingly enough, I think Opalescence probably shares Rarity's deep passion for fashion. Opal seems genuinely excited by how excellent Rarity's initial set of dresses are, and appalled at the later set. Picky and mean as Opal is, there's probably no one else she'd rather have as a master. Now, I know there's a lot of people who think that Rarity poorly represents the element of generosity, since she's often very selfish, and especially so during Sweet and Elite, but to that I say, just look at this episode. Not only for an example of Rarity being generous, but for an example of Rarity getting completely fucked over for being generous in the first place. Now, to be fair, Rarity's original designs were every bit as for her as they were for her friends, but the atrocious designs that she did after that were purely out of generosity. Her friends walk all over her generosity, and then blindly almost get her entire career fucked over. Of course, they do fix the problem, but still, I think I'd be careful about my own generosity after going through this myself. Rarity is ultimately generous where it counts, and her actions in Sweet and Elite are probably defensible as well, though I'll talk about that when I get to it. Out of the other ponies in this episode, the one with the most characterizing dialogue is Fluttershy. I've brought up a few times how I think Fluttershy is manipulative and secretive, and if any episode shows that perfectly, this is the one. Fluttershy is openly comfortable with lying to Rarity about how she feels about the dress. Whereas Applejack and Twilight dodge the question and Rainbow Dash is totally blunt about it, Fluttershy takes a completely passive approach and tries to lie through her discomfort. The most fun thing about this is that underneath her passive nature, she's actually the most critical of Rarity's work. This huge fjord between the thoughts that Flutters has and the words that she says is a pretty interesting lens to view the rest of her interactions through. Rarity's big freakout scene is brilliantly written, as she keeps trying to be dramatic but also overanalyzing her own attempts at drama. I think Rarity's drama scenes are some of the funniest in the show, and her character altogether might be the best vehicle for delivering comedy other than Pinkie Pie, when it's done right. Besides this scene, the episode is loaded with great dry comedy, which is my favorite kind. In terms of production quality, this episode is soaring. When faced with an episode that mostly involves ponies standing around talking to one another, the animation staff could have rested on their laurels, but instead they generated some very expressive dialogue animations and poured their souls into making the episode's big moments some of the most memorable and technically proficient in the show. In the DVD commentary of this episode, it's pointed out that both fashion shows took a lot of effort to put together, and the second one was actually storyboarded by Lauren Faust herself just to make sure that it came across exactly how she wanted it to. Of course, I can't finish talking about this episode without mentioning some of its cultural impact. Between the phrase 20% cooler and the introduction of Vinyl Scratch, aka DJ Pony, this episode possibly provided the most pony memeture out of any episode of the show. That said, there's really nothing to analyze about this, so here's me singing a gender-swapped rendition of Art of the Dress. Now, the stars on my belt need to be technically accurate. Orion has 3 stars on his belt, not 4. Stitch by stitch, stitching it together. Deadline looms, don't you know the client's always right? Even if my fabric choice was perfect, gotta get them all done by tonight. Pinkie Pie, that color's too obtrusive, wait until you see it in the light. I'm sewing them together. Don't you think my gown would be more me with some lollipops? Well, I think balloons? Well, do it! Hour by hour, one more change. I'm sewing them together, take great pains. Fluttershy, you're putting me in a bind. Rainbow Dash, what is on your mind? Oh my gosh, there's simply not much time. Don't forget, Applejack's studs must shine. Dressmaking's easy. Every customer's call brings a whole new revision. Have to pick up the pace, still hold to my vision. That constellation is Canis Major, not minor. French haute couture, please. What if it rains? Galoshes. More balloons. Oh no, that's too many balloons. More candy! Oh, less candy. Oh wait, I know! Streamers! Streamers? Whose dress is this? Streamers it is. What? Aren't you going to tell me to change something too? No, I just want my dress to be cool. Do you not like the color? The color's fine, just make it look cooler. Do you not like the shape? The shape's fine, just make the whole thing, cooler. It needs to be about 20% cooler. All we ever want is indecision. All we really like is what we know. Gotta balance style with adherence, making sure we make a good appearance. Even if you simply have to fudge it, make sure that it stays within our budget. Gotta overcome intimidation. Remember, it's all in the presentation. Piece by piece, snip by snip, croup, duck, haunch, shoulders, hip, bolt by bolt, primmed and pressed, yard by yard, always stressed, and that's the art of the dress.